Picture a woman alone in her apartment, not lonely, but choosing to live life on her terms. Society whispers she's missing out, that she needs a man to complete her. But what if being alone isn't a flaw? It's her superpower. Drawing from Carl Jung's wisdom, this journey of women who embrace solo living isn't just defiance, it's a revolution of self-discovery. Yet the world pushes back with 6 toxic demands that threaten her freedom, from impossible perfection to emotional dependence. How does she stand strong? Dive into the bold, inspiring path of women who shine without needing anyone else and learn how to break free from the traps holding you back. Part 1. The demand to be perfect. For women who choose to live alone, the world often throws a harsh expectation their way. Be perfect. Perfect looks, flawless skin, a constant smile. Perfect personality, always sweet, always sacrificing, always putting others first. Perfect life, as if being single is a problem that needs fixing with endless striving. This demand isn't just about appearances, it's a trap, a sneaky way to undermine a woman's freedom and authenticity. Carl Jung, the famous psychologist, would call this a denial of the shadow, that raw, imperfect, yet vibrant part of who we are. When women living solo reject this toxic pressure, they're not just guarding their independence, they're kicking off a powerful journey to discover who they really are. The demand to be perfect hits hard because it forces women into a fake version of themselves, where every move and word is measured to please others. A woman living alone might hear things like, "You're single? Maybe if you dressed up more, you'd find someone." Or, "You're so independent, but guys prefer a softer vibe." These comments don't just judge her choice to live solo. They suggest her worth depends on meeting society's checklist. Jung taught that when we hide our shadow, our flaws, our anger, our unfiltered emotions, it gets buried in our subconscious, quietly chipping away at our confidence and sense of self. For women, the shadow might be those moments of frustration, sadness, or the bold choice to live life without needing a partner. The pressure to be perfect demands they bury these parts, leaving them stuck playing a role that's not really them. This expectation creates a vicious cycle. Women living alone might start doubting themselves. Am I not good enough to be loved? Or do I need to try harder to prove I'm okay? This self-doubt doesn't just hurt their self-esteem, it makes them feel isolated, as if being single proves they've failed. But here's the truth. Straight from Jung's playbook, the shadow isn't your enemy. It's part of what makes you whole. Those days when you're angry, those moments when you don't feel like smiling, those times you say no to please others, these are pieces of your soul, not things to erase. By embracing their shadow, women living alone shatter the chains of perfection and find strength in being real. So, how do you dodge this toxic demand? First, recognize that perfection is a myth, a fake standard designed to keep you in line. Instead of chasing an impossible ideal, embrace your flaws as part of what makes you unique. Ask yourself, how do I feel when I don't have to be perfect? The answer is often pure relief. You might let your hair stay messy on a rough day, turn down an invite you don't want, or speak your mind without worrying about judgment. These small acts are huge steps toward reclaiming your freedom. Jung called this individuation, the process of blending your light and dark sides to become your truest self. Living alone offers the perfect space to explore this. Without the noise of others' expectations, you can listen to your inner voice. Try journaling, meditating, or just sitting quietly to notice the parts of yourself you've been told to hide. Maybe you've held back anger because you didn't want to seem difficult. Letting yourself feel and express that emotion in a healthy way, like writing it out or talking to a friend, can be incredibly freeing. It's about owning every part of you, not just the polished ones. Jung's lesson is crystal clear. Perfection isn't the goal, it's a cage. Women who live alone and reject this demand aren't just protecting their freedom, they're lighting the way for others. They show that being real is worth more than any applause from the outside world. By standing tall in their imperfections, they send a bold message. A whole woman doesn't need to be perfect. She just needs to be herself. That's where true power begins. Part 2. The demand to be dependent. For women who choose to live alone, the world often pushes a subtle but suffocating demand. You need someone else to be whole. Friends, family, even strangers at a coffee shop might say, "You're so great. Why are you still single?" Or, "Don't you want a man to share your life with?" These questions aren't just casual chatter. They carry a hidden message that being independent is somehow incomplete, that a woman's value hinges on having a partner. This demand to be dependent, emotionally, socially, or even financially, is a toxic trap that threatens the very freedom that makes solo living so powerful. Carl Jung would argue it's a way of dodging the shadow, that inner part of you that's strong enough to stand alone. When women reject this pressure, they're not just protecting their independence, they're rewriting what it means to be enough. The demand to be dependent is sneaky because it's wrapped in concern or flattery, but it cuts deep. It tells women living alone that their choice is a phase, a flaw, or a sign they haven't found the one yet. You might hear, "You'd be happier with someone," as if happiness can't exist without a plus one. This expectation fuels a myth Jung warned about, that we need others to complete us instead of facing our own inner world. When society pushes dependence, it's asking women to project their shadow, their strength, their self-sufficiency onto someone else rather than owning it. For a woman living solo, this can spark self-doubt. Am I weird for liking my own company? Or maybe I do need someone to feel complete. That doubt is the real poison, chipping away at the confidence that comes from knowing you're enough on your own. The fallout from this demand is heavy. It can make women feel like their independence is a problem to fix, pushing them toward relationships that don't align with their true selves just to silence the noise. It's exhausting, constantly defending your choice to live solo against a world that sees it as temporary. Jung's concept of the shadow helps explain why this hurts. When you're told to rely on others, you're being asked to hide the part of you that thrives in solitude, that finds joy in your own rhythm. Suppressing that strength creates an inner conflict, leaving you torn between who you are and who others think you should be. For women living alone, this can feel like a betrayal of the freedom they fought for. So, how do you break free from this demand? Start by owning your independence as a choice, not a gap to fill. Remind yourself that being whole doesn't require a partner. It comes from knowing and loving who you are. Jung's idea of individuation is key here. It's about becoming your fullest self by embracing all parts of you, including the ones society says you shouldn't have, like fierce self-reliance. Try small acts of defiance against the dependence myth. Enjoy a solo dinner at a restaurant, take a trip on your own, or simply savor a quiet evening without feeling like you're missing out. These moments reinforce that your company is enough. Living alone gives you a unique edge, a space to explore your inner world without distractions. Use it to connect with your shadow, that part of you that doesn't need anyone else to shine. Journal about what independence means to you, or reflect on times you felt pressured to depend on others. Maybe you stayed in a bad relationship too long because you were told it's better than being alone. Recognizing those patterns helps you reclaim your power. Jung would say this is how you grow, by facing the parts of yourself you've been taught to hide. The takeaway? Dependence isn't your destiny. It's a demand you can refuse. Women living alone who reject this expectation aren't just guarding their freedom. They're showing the world what it looks like to be whole on your own terms. They prove that you don't need someone else to complete you. You're already a masterpiece. By embracing their solo journey, they light a path for others, daring us all to ask, what if the only person I need is me? Part 3. The demand to always sacrifice. For women living alone, the world often lays down a heavy expectation. Put everyone else first. Family, friends, coworkers, even strangers. Society expects women to sacrifice their time, energy, and dreams to keep others happy. You're single, so you can take on extra work, right? Or, why don't you help out more with the family? You've got no one else to worry about. These comments might sound harmless, but they carry a toxic message. Your needs don't matter as much as others. This demand to always sacrifice is a sneaky thief, stealing the freedom that makes solo living so empowering. Carl Jung would say it's a way of burying the shadow, that fierce, self-focused part of you that dares to prioritize yourself. When women reject this pressure, they're not being selfish. They're reclaiming their right to exist fully as themselves. This demand is particularly insidious because it's often cloaked in praise or guilt. You're so giving. Or, don't you want to make your mom happy? These phrases make it hard to say no without feeling like you're letting someone down. For women living alone, the pressure to sacrifice can feel like a test of their worth, as if their value lies in how much they give up. Jung's concept of the shadow helps unpack why this hurts. When you're constantly told to put others first, you're forced to hide the part of you that craves self-care, ambition, or simply a quiet night to yourself. That hidden shadow, your right to say, "my needs matter," gets pushed into your subconscious, where it festers as guilt or resentment. Women might find themselves thinking, "if I say no, will they think I'm selfish?" Or, "maybe I should do more since I'm on my own." This inner tug of war drains their energy and dims the spark of their independence. The consequences are brutal. Constantly sacrificing leads to burnout, where women feel depleted, like they're running on empty. It can also make them question their choice to live alone, wondering if they're failing by not being the ever-giving caretaker society expects. Jung would argue this is what happens when you deny your shadow. You lose touch with the strength that comes from honoring your own boundaries. For women living solo, this demand threatens the very freedom that lets them explore who they are without apology. It's like being asked to dim your light so others can shine, a betrayal of the bold, self-reliant life they've chosen. So, how do you push back against this toxic demand? Start by recognizing that self-care isn't selfish, it's essential. Jung's idea of individuation is about becoming whole by embracing all parts of yourself, including the part that says, "I deserve to come first sometimes." Practice saying no without guilt, whether it's turning down a favor or skipping a family event to recharge. For example, if a friend asks you to drop everything to help them move, you might say, "I'd love to support you, but I need this weekend for myself." Setting these boundaries feels awkward at first, but it's a game changer. It tells the world and yourself that your needs are just as valid. Living alone is a golden opportunity to practice this. With no one else's expectations crowding your space, you can tune into what you need. Try carving out me time each week, maybe an evening with a good book or a walk where you let your mind wander. Journaling can help too. Write down moments when you felt pressured to sacrifice and how it made you feel. Maybe you skipped a workout to help a coworker or canceled plans to please a parent. Seeing these patterns helps you spot where to draw the line. Jung would call this facing your shadow, acknowledging the part of you that's been taught to always give in. Here's the kicker. Saying no doesn't make you less caring. It makes you stronger. Women living alone who reject the demand to always sacrifice aren't just protecting their freedom. They're showing the world what it looks like to live authentically. They prove that you can love others without losing yourself. By honoring their own needs, they become a beacon, inspiring others to ask, "What if putting myself first is the ultimate act of strength?" Part 4. The demand to rush into love. For women living alone, society often sounds like a broken record. Hurry up and find love. From nosy aunts asking, "When are you settling down?" to dating apps pushing endless matches, the world acts like being single is a race against time. The message is clear. You're not complete until you're paired up, and every solo day is a missed opportunity. This demand to rush into love isn't just annoying. It's a toxic pressure that threatens the freedom of women who choose to live on their own terms. Carl Jung would call it a dodge, a way to avoid facing the shadow, that inner strength that thrives in solitude. When women reject this rush, they're not giving up on love. They're choosing to honor their own pace and discover who they are first. This demand is sneaky because it's sold as care or urgency. "You're not getting any younger," or "don't you want someone to share your life with?" These lines make single women feel like they're falling behind, as if love is a deadline they're failing to meet. Jung's shadow concept explains why this stings. Society wants you to outsource your sense of purpose to a relationship, ignoring the part of you that finds joy in independence. For women living alone, this can spark anxiety. Am I wasting time? Or what if I end up alone forever? That fear pushes them toward rushed romances, swiping right out of panic, not desire, which often lead to relationships that don't fit who they are. It's like being forced to run a marathon before you've learned to walk. The fallout is rough. Rushing into love can mean settling for less, ignoring red flags just to check the coupled box. It steals the space women need to explore their own dreams, quirks, and strengths. Jung would say this happens when you bury your shadow. The part of you that's okay with waiting, that values your own company. That buried strength turns into doubt, making solo living feel like a holding pattern instead of a vibrant choice. For women who cherish their independence, this demand is a direct attack on the freedom to grow at their own rhythm. So, how do you sidestep this trap? First, embrace your timeline. Love isn't a race, and being single isn't a flaw, it's a season to savor. Jung's idea of individuation is about becoming your truest self, and that takes time. Trust that the right connection will come when you're ready, not when society says you should be. Try savoring solo moments. Plan a weekend getaway just for you, dive into a hobby you love, or simply enjoy a quiet coffee without checking your phone. These acts remind you that your life is full with or without a partner. Living alone is your secret weapon here. It's a space to listen to your heart without the world's ticking clock. Journal about what love means to you, not what others expect. Maybe you rushed into a past relationship to silence the pressure, only to lose yourself. Recognizing that helps you slow down. Jung would call this facing your shadow, owning the part of you that's content to wait for something real. By doing so, you reclaim your freedom to choose love, not chase it. Here's the truth. Waiting isn't wasting time. It's building a life you love. Women living alone who reject the rush into love aren't missing out. They're creating space for a love that matches their strength. They show the world that a full life doesn't need a deadline. By honoring their own pace, they inspire others to ask, what if the best love story starts with loving myself first? Part 5. The demand to please everyone. Women living alone often face a relentless expectation. Keep everyone happy. From family expecting you to host every holiday to coworkers leaning on you for favors because you've got no one at home, society assumes your time and energy are up for grabs. The unspoken rule is clear. A good woman puts others' needs first, even at the cost of her own peace. This demand to please everyone is a quiet but deadly threat to the freedom that solo living offers. Carl Jung would see it as a rejection of the shadow, that bold, unapologetic part of you that dares to prioritize your own happiness. When women push back against this pressure, they're not being cold, they're guarding their right to live authentically. This demand is tough to spot because it's often disguised as kindness or duty. You're so reliable, or can't you just do this one thing for me? These phrases make it feel like saying no is a betrayal. For women living alone, the pressure to please can be intense, as if their single status means they owe the world their availability. Jung's shadow concept sheds light on why this hurts. When you're expected to always say yes, you're forced to hide the part of you that wants to protect your time, energy, or dreams. That hidden shadow, your right to choose yourself, gets buried, turning into guilt or frustration. Women might think, if I don't help, will they think I'm selfish? Or maybe I should say yes to keep the peace. This constant people-pleasing erodes the freedom to live life on their terms. The consequences hit hard. Always pleasing others leaves women drained, with little left for themselves. It can make solo living feel like a burden, as if independence comes with an obligation to overcompensate. Jung would argue that denying your shadow, your need to set limits, creates an inner split where you're torn between your true desires and what others expect. This demand threatens the core of why many women choose to live alone, the freedom to define their own priorities without apology. So, how do you break free? Start by seeing your worth as separate from others' approval. Jung's individuation process is about embracing all of you, including the part that says, I don't owe anyone my happiness. Practice setting boundaries, even small ones. If a friend asks you to drop everything for a favor, try, I'd love to help, but I'm booked this time. It's not easy at first, but it's liberating. Or if family expects you to host every gathering, suggest sharing the load. How about we rotate this year? These steps show the world your time is valuable. Living alone is your superpower here. It's a chance to tune into what you want without others' voices drowning you out. Try reflecting on moments when you said yes but wanted to say no. Journaling can help. Write down how it felt to overextend yourself and what you'd do differently. Maybe you took on extra work because you didn't want to seem difficult. Seeing these patterns empowers you to choose differently. Jung would call this facing your shadow, owning the part of you that's allowed to disappoint others. Here's the deal. Saying no doesn't make you less kind. It makes you whole. Women living alone who reject the demand to please everyone aren't shutting people out. They're opening the door to their true selves. They prove you can care for others while caring for yourself. By setting boundaries, they inspire others to ask, what if choosing myself is the kindest thing I can do? Part 6. The demand to hide true emotions. Women living alone often face a silent but crushing expectation. Keep your emotions in check. Society loves a woman who's always calm, cheerful, and put together, urging them to hide anger, sadness, or doubt to avoid being labeled too emotional or unstable. Don't make a scene, or just smile, you'll feel better. These phrases aren't just advice, they're a demand to bury your true feelings. This pressure to hide emotions is a toxic chain that threatens the freedom of women who choose solo living. Carl Jung would call it a denial of the shadow, that raw, honest part of you where your deepest emotions live. When women reject this demand, they're not being dramatic, they're embracing their full humanity. This expectation is slippery because it's often framed as strength or politeness. You're so strong, you don't need to cry, or don't get mad, it's not a big deal. For women living alone, this can feel like a spotlight, as if their single status makes their emotions more scrutinized. Jung's shadow concept explains why this cuts deep. When you're told to suppress your feelings, you're hiding the part of you that's real, messy, and powerful. That shadow, your anger at unfair treatment, your grief over a loss, your doubts about the future, gets shoved into your subconscious, where it simmers as shame or disconnection. Women might wonder, if I show how I feel, will they think I'm weak, or maybe I should just keep it together? This bottling up steals the freedom to be fully themselves. The impact is devastating. Hiding emotions creates an inner wall, isolating women from their own hearts. It can make solo living feel lonely, not because they lack company, but because they're cut off from their true selves. Jung would say that suppressing the shadow disrupts individuation, the journey to wholeness. For women who value their independence, this demand undermines the joy of living authentically, turning their emotions into something to manage rather than embrace. So, how do you escape this trap? Start by giving yourself permission to feel everything: anger, joy, sadness, all of it. Jung's individuation is about integrating your shadow, letting your emotions be part of your strength. Try expressing what you feel in safe ways. Tell a trusted friend you're upset, cry during a movie, or even yell into a pillow when you're mad. These acts aren't weakness, they're courage. If someone pushes you to cheer up, you might say, "I'm okay feeling this way right now." It's a small stand, but it's powerful. Living alone is your safe haven for this work. With no one else's expectations in your space, you can explore your emotions freely. Try journaling about a time you hid how you felt. Maybe you smiled through a bad day to avoid judgment. Write down what you wanted to express and how it felt to hold back. This helps you reconnect with your shadow, the part of you that's been silenced. Jung would say this is how you heal, by letting your emotions breathe. Here's the bottom line. Feeling deeply doesn't make you fragile. It makes you alive. Women living alone who reject the demand to hide emotions aren't falling apart. They're coming together. They show the world that true strength is being real, not polished. By embracing their feelings, they inspire others to ask, what if showing my heart is the bravest thing I can do?